All right, I'm working on this 2013 Dodge Dart. Here it has the 1.4 liter turbo. We're going to be replacing the timing belt and the water pump. Here we have our timing kit. Went with the gates. Let's go ahead and take it out and look at it. All right, so we got our new water pump. Now, this doesn't come with a gasket. If you use RTV, our timing belt, and we've got a new tensioner. I'm going to be using this right here to seal the water pump. Also going to be replacing the serpentine belt. This is a cam tool to hold that still. This is a timing kit. Comes with everything you need. All right, so the first thing we're going to need to do is get it up on ramps, so we'll be able to get to the coolant, get it drained, and we'll just get started with that. All right, we got it up on the ramps here. Got the rear wheel chocked. Now, before you go to draining the coolant, you're going to have this underneath plastic piece and this felt that you're going to have to remove. I already removed that on mine and had that off there. I'll show you what it looks like. So you're going to have a piece that's going to be held on by like some 10 millimeters, holding this piece on. And this is going to be bolted up here to the front bumper. All right, I'm over here on the driver's side. Before we open up this valve on the radiator, I'm going to take this 1/4 hose. It's probably about a foot long. And we're going to slip it on this spout here. It sets right over the top of this frame. And it'll just run down the frame if you don't get this on here. So give me just a moment. And we just got this ran down into our pan here. So I've got my little crescent. I'm just going to go ahead and open this up slowly. And it goes without saying, you know, make sure that the vehicle has cooled off. But I'm trying to not knock my hose back off. So if you've got one of these cheap aftermarket radiators like I do, you're better off just popping the radiator hose loose. You will make less of a mess. Unbeknownst to me, the spout that goes in here flies out, unlike the OEM, and it dumped coolant everywhere, all over me and everything. So if you have an aftermarket, be very leery of these little spouts. They're supposed to be able to turn a little bit and open up the spout where the hose is, but it's basically pointless. If I would have known, I would have just took the hose on the other side loose. It would have been easier. Now, the other thing about draining here, you're not going to get all the coolant by no means, so you can just get what you can and then close the spout back off. I'm going to go ahead and pour up what coolant I've got left here. All right, I'm going to get started up here on the engine, just getting some things removed and getting the air box out of the way. I'm going to start with this hose right here. Just give that a push in right there, lift that up. Over here, it clips down. Over here, it clips into this area. You just push that right there up. And we freed that. Now back here, you squeeze on these green tabs and it'll pop it out of there. So now we've got enough slack that we can move that out of our way. Now back here, we got a clamp. This hose that runs into the oil separator, we're going to push this off, or try to. Alright, finally got it there. We're going to go ahead and get this negative loose when I got it on my mind. Right, I'm back over here at the turbo. I'm going to get this coolant hose here. It's running across in front of the mount. And sometimes I'll use a heat gun to help push these hoses off, because mine have recently been removed so they're not stuck as bad as they would normally be. And we're going to go ahead and get this little vacuum here. Now this clips. Pop that out. All right, I'm going to remove this one and this one. That way I can just take this section of hose out. These little clamps are no joke. Now I also got my drain pan down there. I'm sure that these are going to try to leak. You want to just kind of leave your drain pan under there, because we're going to have more coolant coming out of the hoses, and then it's going to pour out of the water pump. So this has this clamp, and I'd have to replace it with another one, so I'm just going to take it loose right here. I could probably pull this back out of the way, but it's just another step to completely remove it. All right, so we have that. We've got another little vacuum hose here. Now, most likely I could just remove this whole little unit here. Goes down into that little actuator right here, but I'm just going to get this where I can remove this whole piece here, basically, and have this out of the way when I go to working on that. So I'm going to get on this band right here next. So 8mm or 5/16. Let's see, we got that loose. This band right here is, I'm going to go ahead and remove that. It's 8mm as well. All right, so we've got this whole piece. Good to have yourself a little box to set all these pieces in. You got a 10mm right here. Then we're going to go ahead and remove this. Looks like we got a 8mm right there. Now this little piece has a safety lock right here. Let's see. Push that back and squeeze that. So this has plenty of slack. So yeah, we're just going to twist this back over here somewhere out of the way. All right, the next thing we're going to get on is this tank here. Overflow tank's in the way. It's got these clamps that clamp it at the top, and it also has this clamp here. So we need to remove one of them. So I'm going to remove this one right here. So to do this, I have to break this little clamp. Or I take screwdriver. Just be careful, don't damage the pipe. We got to get this broke loose. So you can see, you can take a screwdriver in here as well. Just kind of pry on it. But you may have to work at it a minute. And we'll just put a screw style clamp back on here. So get yourself a file that looks kind of like this. And this actually works the best. So just coming down here and just kind of cutting on the side of this. Don't hit your hose. And I've kind of cut this band loose. I probably just about got it now. These things are good, but they're just difficult to remove, and I can't really get any leverage here. So after cutting that side, it should be about ready to relent here. And most likely I'm going to have to use my heat gun here. So you'll have a very hard time if you don't heat this up. I set this on about 3 to 3.5 to 4. Just be careful around plastic. You don't want to. I'm going to have to heat this up a good bit to get it off here. I'm going to tug at it with a seal puller. All right, so see, it's really hot. Now, if I hadn't heated this up, there's no way that would have broke loose that easy. All right, so it's should be ready to come off there. Okay, now we just got these 10 millimeters. Just squeeze down there. All right, we're going to go ahead and get us a jack under here. We'll have to move our pan out of the way. I got to get this engine supported. All right, so just got it positioned on the pan there. So these are all going to be 13s. I'm just going to start over here. Now, because I don't have the tire off, this is going to lift up because of the shock a little bit. Now, once loose, this will slide off of here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this wheel here. I should have done this before taking the mount loose. I'm going to have to kind of adjust the engine as I'm raising the vehicle to get the tire off here, but we'll go ahead and get these broke loose. Now, I don't know how much more difficult it would be just to leave the tire to do this. Not to say that you couldn't, but in my case, to be able to give you a look in here, I'm going to have to remove it. Just to show you where I'm lifting at there. So I'm just going to leave the jack there as well. Now, another thing you're going to note here as well is I do not have these fender liners in here, and that kind of makes it a little bit easier to see up in here and be able to give you a good visual. Right, we're going to start taking these 13 millimeters out of this mount bracket here. All right, this one doesn't have a lot of clearance unless I lift it, but I'm trying to just get it broke loose here. I should be able to get it by hand. Okay, you can also get a 3/8 swivel in here to help with this one. Just to show you what I'm talking about, it's the clearance between here and here. I don't want to lift on the engine any more than I have to. All right, now we're coming over to this side. We get this low one right over here. All right, we're looking up through the bottom here. I'm going to take care of these. And we got one more nut on a studded bolt. You see that? All right, so like I said, this is a 13 millimeter nut. We're going to take care of our serpentine belt. Just using a 15 millimeter here. All right, the next thing we're going to focus on is removing this crank pulley. Now, if you don't have a way of holding this, you really are going to need some sort of an impact to get these loose. They're not really that tight, but it just is going to turn on you. This little hole right here is what aligns it right there. There you can see that little nub right there. All right, we're going to get on the 10 millimeters, holding our front timing cover here. Right now we're just over here on the other side. All right, this is going to have this wire. Let's peel that out of there. And I don't think I mentioned it. This, is an interference engine. This engine in particular has around 80,000 miles, but the vehicle has more than that. But the engine itself is 80,000 miles, and I definitely want to, get a new belt. The water pump is pretty important too because it's interference. I have seen these on different vehicles lock up, so you definitely want to take care of all this stuff while you're in here. Now, right here we got a Fiat set up, and I'm going to be showing you probably on this one because as far as anything, it's going to be difficult to show you. You can see the setup's pretty much the same if you got a Fiat. You just have the 5 bolts here, but it's pretty much the same. Let's just get this off here. The timing cover is a little bit different, and this piece here is a little bit different. The crank pulley itself a little bit different, but as you can see, it is you get in here, it's the same setup. We'll go ahead and pull this timing cover off just like we did the other one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set this tool up. Now, this is going to go down on here like this. It's designed to set. We got to get it located first. So we got got this little hole's going to line up with that pin there, and this also has the cam lock and our little tensioner tool. So I've got my 15 millimeter. I'm going to have to rotate this. And I realize that we got the belt on here, but I'm going to set the tool up. Let's see. Okay. So once we've got that where we need it here, it's going to line up, and then we should be able to get our bolts. And once we've got those in, we'll thread this. If it's not lined up, you won't be able to thread that in. It's just threading into this right here. So we're on the back side. There's going to be a lot of these 10 millimeters holding this bracket on, and there's a lot of different wires and things connected to this. Let's see. And we got another one on the side here. So this whole bracket piece will come off the back, and then we can actually get to this vacuum here. Okay, so we got 3 of these Torx T45. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Okay, so you can see in here, it's just like the little vacuum pump. It has the little bump right there. And so it's going to go in there and locate that. We'll get our screws back in. All right, so this is all locked down and in location, so this can't move. So at this point, you know, you could loosen off your tensioner and you will, you know, place your belt. Everything's going to be lined up, and then put your tensioner back down. And you can notice there's like a window on the tensioner here. So you can see the, and there's some of them are different. The other one, the replacement's different, but you know, you loosen this off and you turn this, and it gets it, it's supposed to be in that window right there. Somewhere in there. So anyways, that's how you go about using this kit, and I'm going to show you a little bit easier way of doing this. We're going to take these tools back off. Okay, the tools are off. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this with my 15 millimeter. And it really is not going to matter what position that we're in. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop it right there. All right, I'm going to start up here. I'm just going to put me a paint mark on this sprocket. Now I'm going to mark the belt, the exact location. All right, so I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to find me a spot to mark. So let's mark it right here. Now what we would do is transfer our marks from this belt to the other belt. We could put it back on, and everything should be in alignment. Or let's just loosen this 13 millimeter. That's going to pop back. And we're just going to start wiggling that belt loose. And this should just slide right off here. All right, so there we are. We've just completely removed it. Now, you know, this didn't move. This didn't move. And if it does move, we just move it back where we need it. So let's just pretend that we made this mark on another belt, which is easy to do. Just line them up, count the ribs or whatever. So I'm going to start down here. We're going to put this right back on down here. All right, so you can see we just place that right back where it goes. We'll just wrap this right back around here on our water pump. And if you can see my paint mark right there, it's lining right back up there. So I know that I've got the belt right back where it was. So then the tension's off. We'll just slip this right back on here. All right, so now I'm just going to take my tool. This is like the only tool I think you really do need, or something similar to this. And we're going to apply tension, and on this one, the tensioner is right there. So they all may be different. All right, so snug that right there. Now we're going to get our tools, we'll rotate this thing, and we'll see if we're still lining up. All right, so we need to get this on here. And it looks like I need to rotate a little more. And so I can rotate this thing around again, you know, just to show you. So it doesn't matter. All right, so I rotated it on around. We're going to go ahead and try to get this piece back in here. And we got this lined up with a stud. All right, so come back here to the back and look, and as you can see, this is lined up. Now, if this hole was over here, we'd have to go a whole nother revolution with the crank. But said if it wasn't in alignment, then we would not. Let me get my tool going the right way here. All right, so we've got it in alignment. As you can see, our bolt holes are lining up, and the pin is going into its position. All right, so I got that bolted back down on there. It tells me that everything is back exactly where it was. So I don't really see any need in this piece here. This is a lot of extra work. The other piece might be okay to check it and make sure that everything's good, but I really, locking all this, it seems like a lot of extra work. The only deviation I've seen was in the tensioner. Depending on where it's at, it moves around a little bit, so that might be something you want to rotate several times and then maybe readjust it, or make sure that it's staying close to in the middle there. So that's how we're going to do the other one. We're just going to mark it. Okay, all I've done here is just put this tool on here to kind of get it at the top dead center, and basically I'm going to make my mark on the belt here, and I'm going to go up top and make the mark. I'm going to be using this painter's marker this time. All right, so I got up my mark there, and I got my mark up here. Now I'm going to also differentiate which one's the top and the bottom, so I can put that on the belt just to make absolutely sure everything's going to be the same. All right, you can see where the mark is now, and it's, you know, it fluctuates a little bit, but this is, you know, supposed to be in here, but as you rotate it and everything, it moves a little bit. All right, we're just going to loosen this off. I'm going to be replacing that, but I'm just slipping it off for now. All right. All right, so we're just going to set this up here. Or I'm just putting my paint mark, and I marked this one the top. And now I'm going to go ahead and line up the other one down here and get it marked. So I'm just lining up all these ribs. And what I also like to do is to count, just to make sure once I've kind of went through and done this, just to make absolutely sure. All right, so we got these marked and lined up, and then I also, so on top of doing that and matching up my marks, I've counted them out and I've got 67 ribs. So I marked them both, the top, so going from left here to right, 67 ribs on both of them. So I know I've matched them up. I've counted the number of ribs from here to the other mark. So I know that my new belt is going to be marked exactly the same way the old one is. So we've got that all good to go. All right, we're going to get on this water pump because last thing I need to do today is get this removed. Now, I moved my jack temporarily. That engine is not going anywhere. It's got a transmission mount. It's got a mount in the center. I just moved it back onto the transmission there temporarily, and when I get done with this, then I will go ahead and put it back for support, but it'll be fine till then. I need to have my pan positioned exactly under here because there's going to be a lot of coolant. Now, what we're going to do is try to get just the bottom broke loose here first. And maybe it won't splash out quite so bad. Okay, there is one little nut. Getting the bottom ones here. There's that one. And it appears to be really stuck in there. I guess that RTV. So let me go ahead and get this other one. I'm going to take the handle of my rubber mallet. Okay, so this is really stuck on here. I'm going to have to work with it a minute. I don't even know like how hard this is going to be. I knew it was going to be stuck a little bit, but it's really glued on there. Okay, here's what I found to work using a pickle fork and kind of prying back against this tensioner. Not getting too rough because I don't want to bend that studded bolt, but you can see we got it moving. It's probably fixing to pour coolant, or at least I expect it to. It's still hung up on that bottom stud. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be as bad to remove. But you can see that I've got it moving. I just got to get all that RTV broke loose. Try to get a slower stream going here before I just let it loose. It's still hanging on a little bit too. Yes, that RTV really holds there. All right, so I got to get that cleaned up. I'm just going to kind of scrape it off and wipe it down. Let's go ahead and take care of this tensioner and get it out of the way. It appears to have a self-locking nut. However, I'll put Loctite on this. Going back just to be sure. All right, let's get that out of the way. We can better get to this down here. All right, I'm going to just be wiping this down with some alcohol here. Right. Just want to have that as clean as we can get it. All right, so this is designed for these water pump houses. Not a very big tube. We don't need much of it. So I'm just going to run a bead around this little channel here and try not to make a mess. Yeah, stuff's gray. Thought it would be blue. I want to go around these little bolto areas too. So it'll take me a minute. So you just want to take your time, make sure that you do a good job. Get a good bead around there. The last thing you want to do is have to redo this. It'd be a nightmare. All right, let's see if we can get this set in place without making a mess. I'm going to be putting medium Loctite. I guess that stud is kind of handy when it comes to putting it back. It's not so handy when trying to remove it. So we're just going to finger tighten these for now. I'm going to make sure that it's flat, but we don't want to torque it. We'll let it set up overnight as long as I can. You'll just got to squishing the RTV out. Okay, so that's good for now. We've got them just run down, and it's even squishing out the sides a little bit. But we're going to let it set up overnight, and we'll work on this tomorrow. We don't put anything else in until we get this torqued either. Okay, so it's been over 12 hours. We're going to go ahead and get this water pump here torqued down to 89 inch-pounds. That's going to be about 7 foot-pounds, but 89 inch-pounds. And we'll just go around and double check it. All right, we'll get the tensioner here. And I'm going to put a little bit of this medium Loctite. This nut is self-locking as well. I'll go ahead and start slipping the timing belt on here. Okay, so because this belt is new and tight, after getting it on my mark on the crank and up here, you can see I'm a little bit off of this mark right here. And I've had to turn this with my little cam tool. You could use this right here to turn it as well as 18. But I've just moved it a little bit. Now what's going to happen is once I pull up this slack here and slip this on, that's going to go right where it needs to be. But because it's a new belt, it's not going to go on exactly like the old one. What counts is that this mark down here is on, this mark here is on. So we've got the same amount of tension, the same amount of ribs on this side as what it did have. Okay, so we're going to line this up with that. Probably ain't going to be able to see this in the way here, but I can barely see it myself here with this tool right in the way. Let's see how close we are. We're way off. Now this wants to move when you're tightening it, so you have to kind of check and double check. All right, so there we have it lined up. Now what we want to do now is rotate this around several times and make sure it's going to stay in place and stay the same. Okay, I've rotated this several times and the notch appears to be staying right here. So I'm just going to take it loose and readjust it and then rotate it again and just make sure that it's staying right in the center there. Okay, so I just backed it off ever so slightly. And we're just going to rotate it again, check it again. Okay, we're going to go ahead and torque this to 18 foot-pounds. And I want to make sure that this doesn't turn on me. All right, and it stayed in place. All right, let's go ahead and start getting our timing cover pieces back in place here. And remember, we got to pack our wire. It runs along that back side of that groove. We got to put that back in place. Just kind of got that loosely on there till we get all of them in place, and we'll snug them all at once. And I'm just tucking that wire back in there as I go here. These do not need to be very tight. I wouldn't go more than like 50 inch-pounds. I'm just going to be snugging them with this little 1/4-inch ratchet. So make sure all of your wire, like I said, is tucked into this groove. You'll have to take this bolt back loose here. All right, we're getting ready to put this crank pulley on here. Maybe if I can not knock the camera off. And I've got some medium Loctite on my bolts. I'm just going to run these down by hand. We're going to snug them up with the impact. Ryan, don't get too carried away with your impact, because you can damage or strip these. And if you want to torque them, and you can hold it 25 foot-pounds. All right, let's go ahead and get our new serpentine belt on here. And medium Loctite on these. And we're just going to get this little nut back on here. Okay, I'm going to be torquing these to 25 foot-pounds, but this one and the one right above this one, I can barely even get to them, so I'm just going to be tightening these two by feel. So the main thing is don't over tighten and strip them. All right, now what I've done is put these in first, kind of loosely. I had all these out, and then I'm just going to slide this portion here back into place. I think it's easier as far as lining up those bolts, because these on the body here are easy to get in place. Now, if this is off, I can use this bolt here to draw this thing up as well. Or I'm going to go 35 foot-pounds. All right, we're going to get this overflow tank back in place here. And just using a little screw clamp. I had to make sure this hose is routed under this. Now it's recommended 24 hours before putting coolant. It has been probably about 20. And you want to make sure all of your hoses, double check that your valve on your radiator is shut. And I got out, let's see, I got out a gallon, and I'm going to see if I can get a gallon back in here. I know I probably spilled about a half a gallon though. We'll see how much of this we can get in here. All right, I managed to get a gallon in there. All right, I'm going to work on getting this wheel back on here. All right, let's check for leaks. Right, now there's a few drips that were there earlier, but I'm not seeing any new drips. I'm just going to add a little more coolant to it. Probably get the wheels unchocked. It sounds good. And take it for a test drive. Okay, so I took it down the road. It's driving good. No drips or leaks that I can see. And seems to be doing really well. Now, I would consider this a pretty simple timing belt change, with exception, having to remove the coolant tank and the motor mount there. It's not too bad. This, timing toolkit seems to be kind of unnecessary. If you mark your belt in whatever position and put it back on there, you're going to get it back on the way that it was. And just to show you what I was talking about, the stuff on this side, there is a lot of things you have to remove to get that vacuum pump off there. So, if it's not really necessary, it's just way more work. So the only tool I'd really say that you kind of need is that little tensioner tool, because it's kind of a special little tool, unless you can figure out some way of turning that and tightening that up. So that's going to do it for the video. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you for watching.